Hi guys, welcome back to the Pageant Project. Hope you're having a great week. One of the things that coming into pageant season, at least if you're over here in America, I'm starting to think I live in America. I don't. I just talk to Americans all day long. Um, One of the things going into pageant season in America, I'm in Australia, Adrian. It's okay. You're not losing your mind. One of the big things is what makes you unique. That ties in a lot to one of the most dreaded questions, I think, which is why should we pick you? But why should we pick you over everyone else here? Or what would make you the best pick to be the next Miss Volunteer America, Miss All American, Miss USA, whatever it is? And when that question comes up, obviously you want to try to portray yourself as having some quality that no one else does, right? Otherwise, why on earth should they pick you? And so you want to be unique. And I was giving some thought to this. And for reference, I don't know about you, but I always seem to have my best ideas when I'm either A, in the shower, or B, when I'm driving. And in both those situations, it's very inconvenient because you can't write any of the ideas down. And so I actually leant out of the shower to grab my phone to type in my notes app my thought on this. Because many of you, and even I've been guilty of this when working with my clients, is thinking that it comes into your story. Like you're going to have a unique story. But the diss on that is, well, yes, you're unique like everyone else, right? That's kind of the in jokes. Like, yes, everyone is unique. Yes, every snowflake is unique. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So, for example, you might tell me, oh, I've been to all states in America. Okay, great. And? Or you might say that you can snort, I don't know, cherry coke through one nostril and then blow it out through your other ear. It's like, okay, neat party trick. And so having a unique story is not enough. It really needs to translate into, I believe, something about who you are. Okay, so you had a unique story, but how did it shape you? How did it change you? How did it inform your life choices? And then maybe that somehow makes you unique. But the thing is, and I have my notes here, the thing is, I believe it comes down to three separate intersections. And intersections are three different personal qualities. And why this is cool is because whenever you have an intersection or an overlap, you multiply the possibilities of what makes you unique. So, for example, if I said, well, it's your story that makes you unique, and then you say, okay, I've been to all 50 states of America. I hope there's 50 states of America, by the way. Don't fact check me on that one. But then what happens if I find someone else who's been to all 50 states of America? Well, you're not unique anymore. But if I say, okay, what makes me unique is that I visited all 50 states of America and I walked to get to all of them, now you have something that sets you apart because it's an intersection or a subset. It's not just people who've been to all 50 states, it's people who've been to all 50 states and have walked or hiked. Now, let me just get to the details. So I believe what makes you, and bear in mind, this is a work in progress. So you are getting my thoughts as I formulate them because I only had this idea probably 2 or 3 hours ago. The three intersections: beliefs, gifts, or talents, beliefs, gifts, and values. Beliefs, gifts, and values. So, in terms of what makes you unique, let's talk about beliefs. I work with 3, maybe 4 private clients at any one time because I don't believe I can work with more than that because they take up so much of my time and attention. And if you're one of my private clients listening to this, I love you, but I do pour a lot into you, so I don't want to take on more. That being said, I think one of the biggest things you can have in your life, one of the most important things, is an unshakable belief. Now, when it goes into pageants, hopefully it's a belief that you have what it takes to be the best representative of the system or something similar. I'll give you an analogy from my life, from coaching in particular. And this is me in pageant coaching, but it really started when I was tennis coaching. And to be clear, if you don't know my story, I didn't have any huge athletic ability when I was growing up. I wasn't terrible, but the first time I saw myself playing tennis, it wasn't pretty at all. But I love tennis for many reasons, which I won't go into now. And I wanted to get good at it. I didn't have the resources to take on a coach, and frankly, I didn't want to. So I taught myself tennis. Now, that gave me a very unique perspective because it really taught me to distinguish between what worked and what didn't. Because many times coaches, they are former players or players who didn't quite make it, and they were very naturally, or they are very naturally gifted, so they don't really know what it takes, or they don't really know how to relate to a normal human being. And so if you ask them, well, how do I hit this shot, or how do I move my feet? They just say, oh, I just do it. They're not very good at the coaching part of it. And so because it took me so long to accumulate my knowledge of tennis and what worked and what didn't, when I decided to become a coach, I had an unshakable belief, well, a couple of unshakable beliefs. One was, and this preceded me deciding I could learn tennis myself, if anyone can do it, I can do it as well. I may not be able to do it quite as well as someone else, especially if it's a physical skill or a physical sport. If I'm trying to learn how to slam dunk in basketball and they're 6'6" and I'm 5'6", I can still learn from them, but maybe the same things don't work exactly. Maybe I can't get quite the same result. But hey, if I model the best in the world, I'm still going to be a lot further along than if I try to learn everything from scratch. So that was one belief I've always had, is that if someone can get a certain result, or someone is good at something, if I get curious enough, I can model them, which is an NLP term. I can model them, and even if I don't get quite as good as they are, I will save years, if not decades, in learning. And that's a huge belief, because if you don't believe that that works, then you never really access your full potential. My cat has decided to jump in a box, and he's having fun there. So, Bob. Anyway, yes, my cat's name is Bob. But that was belief number one that preceded everything, was that if someone else can get a result or someone else can do something, I can do it too. That was really important. Number two, when I started coaching, was I really believed that anyone I worked with, I was the best coach for the job. And I believe that to the extent, and we discussed this briefly in the Pageant and Tangent podcast this week, if I don't believe I'm the best coach for you, and I'm putting your interests before my own, your interest as a pageant contestant before my own interest as a pageant coach, then I should be referring you on to someone who's better. That's what I should do. That makes common sense, right? If I put your interests above my own. So when a student would come to me, or the parent would come to me and say, hey, I want you to teach my daughter, I want you to teach my son, I wouldn't just naturally assume that we were going to be a good fit. I would want to have an initial session, and I do this even now with my clients, to see if I really thought that I could be the best coach for that person. Now, why does this matter? Because when I sit down for a coaching session with you, and I have the belief that, I have more beliefs than these two, but these two fundamental beliefs. So if anyone can do it, then I can do it. But also, I believe that I'm the best coach. I know this might sound a little bit egotistical, but I really believe if I'm taking someone on, I am the best coach for the job. And when I sit down for a session, I have no idea what my private clients are going to hit me with. One time, I ended up working on someone's talent piece and editing down their 4-minute talent piece into basically a 2-minute version, and working on audio software here on my computer because I know how to do all these things. I also have a musical background. My point to that is, I thought I was getting on a pageant coaching session. I didn't realize that I'd be editing down music. But when I get on a session with you, I have this unshakable belief that whatever the issue is, I will find a way. I will find a solution, no matter what it takes. And I don't know what you're coming to me with. This is the thing. I don't know what you're going to ask me to work. I don't know what the problem is going to be. I don't know what the challenge is going to be. but I have an unshakable belief. It's not an affirmation that I tell myself, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. I don't really know where it came from either, but I just know that whatever it takes, I will find a way. That is why I don't get frazzled before a session. I don't get frazzled before an interview, because I know that whatever happens, I'm going to find a way to answer the question if I'm being interviewed, or to ask an interesting question if I'm doing the interview myself, or when I'm working with a client, I will find a way to deliver for them. Now, I'm not saying that my coaching skills are objectively the best in the world. They're not bad, hopefully, but what I'm saying is I have that belief that I will be able to find a way. That's one thing that makes you unique. Okay, that's part one. What are your most deeply held beliefs about yourself? I'm not talking about vision boards. I'm not talking about goals. I'm not talking about any like journaling, anything like that. What are some absolutely unshakable beliefs that you have? And you may not exactly know where they came from. Maybe it came from early in your childhood. But what I will tell you is that if they're really solid beliefs, you rarely question them. You almost just assume that about yourself. You might have to actually ask yourself, what are my most fundamentally held beliefs? What you will know is that you'll be able to back them up with what we call references, which is basically examples that prove that you're right with this belief. So for example, I can remember many sessions I've had as a coach where I went above and beyond and somehow managed to find a solution where many other coaches would just have fallen flat on their face. I remember one session where I was working with an artist, as a visual artist, and we ostensibly were going to go work on her business, and it ended up being a marriage counseling session with her and her partner, because it was a situation with her partner. She was frustrated with him, he was unemployed, etc., etc. But that was really what was draining her energy, and so we needed to address that. But it was supposed to be a business coaching session, it ended up as a relationship coaching session. And I was able to do that because I have a lot of other skills, because I've been obsessed with learning how to help people, and relationships is fundamental to all of us. And so that's one example. That's a reference. And I have many references like that, whether it's in life coaching, tennis coaching, business coaching, or pageant coaching. So ask yourself, what are the most deeply held beliefs about you that you have? Not things that you'd like to believe, things that you almost just take for granted. So that's number one, beliefs. And again, we're talking about things that make you unique. Intersection of three things. That's number one, beliefs. Number two, gifts or talents. Now, you may have worked on these talents. You may have been born with them to some extent, and again, have no idea where they come from. So I would not say that I was talented to begin with tennis. Even at this stage, I wouldn't say that I'm hugely talented. For where I started with, and given the fact that I never really played when I was growing up, except once a week with my father, and you know, in Asian families, you tend to really focus on academics, and academics first, music second, and sport wasn't even on the radar, at least for me, with my family. And so to get as good as I've gotten with the sort of late start and the limited resources, like, yeah, I've done well for that. I wouldn't say I'm talented. When I think about things that I'm just unusually gifted at, one is the ability to learn. I know I can learn things extraordinarily quickly. It may have something to do with the ADHD that I also have, this idea that you become hyper-fixated or hyper-focused on something. And I do believe that having ADHD has given me perhaps certain gifts, has its drawbacks, obviously, as well. But the ability to learn something really quickly, that's something that I tend to have. I tend to be very good at problem solving, which is also something that comes in very handy when I'm coaching. I just had to take a break because I forgot the other one. This is the drawbacks of the ADHD. But the other one that I'm very good at is reading people. And I don't mean, you know, being some sort of tarot card reader and telling you your fortune. I'm talking about sort of sensing when something is off, or sensing when something lands with someone. Like if I'm in front of a judging panel, or I've got other people in the judging panel, I can tell when a connection has been made between the person who's being interviewed and the people sitting on the panel. To give you an example, and again, these are called references, examples that can back up your beliefs about who you are, in this case, what your skills are, what your gifts are. I had a session with a private client. She brought on someone else to sit in on the mock interview so we could have more of a panel interview, right? So it's not just me. And I noticed that when I said something or she said something that this other judge really resonated with, he would very obviously, at least to me, begin nodding his head. And I mentioned this to my client, said, did you notice that when I said that, he started doing, nodding his head? And so then that's your chance when you're reading the room to really lean into that and build the rapport with the judge. Now, I don't remember if she had said she noticed it, but what I will tell you, the judge himself told me that he didn't realize that he did that. And I've had multiple examples of this. I remember when I was in one of my first jobs as a tutor, a math tutor, and my student sat in front of me, and I just sensed something was off about her, and I said, is everything all right? You seem a bit off. Turned out, and she was a bit taken aback because she had no idea that she was giving off any vibe that something was wrong. Turned out that when she had been driving to my place, she'd almost been run off the road by a semi-trailer, like a big truck. The trailer had taken a turn and taken it a bit too tight, almost run her off the road. And so that obviously had left her frazzled. But my point is, this is a gift. I don't remember ever working on it. It just seemed, and maybe it comes from being an introvert and being a bit shy at school, so you kind of get good at reading people, if you know what I mean. But those are the gifts. So what are your gifts? And again, you may have worked on them. I'm not saying that you're just born with them and it's not something that you've grafted at, but it certainly could be a combination of both. Maybe you're born with it, maybe you're not. Maybe you're born with it and you worked on it, became even better, or maybe you weren't so good at it, but you worked on it and now it's gone to a really high skill. But that's area number 2. What are your unique talents, skills, or gifts? Okay, that's area number 2. So number 1 was beliefs. Number 2 is your gifts. The intersection, the third area where you could intersect is your values. Now, this is something that is hugely important, and I don't think enough people give it the attention it deserves. Let's say as a pageant coach, so you have the belief that I do, which is that you'll find a way to make it happen, whatever it takes, and that if someone can be good at it, you can be good at it too, right? So you have that belief both for yourself, but for your clients as well. So you have the same beliefs as me, and let's say you have the same gifts as me, you're empathic, you've got good problem-solving skills, etc., etc., etc. But if my values are I put my clients' needs first and I believe in honesty, authenticity, and transparency above everything else, which hopefully you've been following for any amount of time, is something you know about me. But let's say your beliefs or your values rather are, well, money. I value money above oil. So I value myself above everyone else. So it's got to be a win for me. And if it's not a win for me, I don't care if it's a win for my client. We're not going to be close to the same at all. We may have the same beliefs. We may have the same gifts, but we are not going to read the same at all. We are not going to attract the same clients. We are not going to want to work with the same clients. And frankly, we're probably completely different people. And I'm just thinking about this now. We probably wouldn't even like each other at all. Values are incredibly important. You can see this, I don't want to say to a shallow extent, but maybe a simpler to understand example, political values or political beliefs. And when I say beliefs, I know I'm interchanging it with what I said in the first one, but what I'm really saying is your political leanings really are, I think, dependent on what is it that you value. And you can see how divisive that is right now in our society. And so I would ask you, what are your most important values? And I'm not talking about political values. I'm more talking about, if you want an example, what's most important to you in life? What's most important to you in a friend? What's most important? What do you want people to remember about you when you leave a room? What do you want people to write on your tombstone or your epitaph or deliver at your eulogy when they say about you? Do you want your friend or the person who's delivering your eulogy to say, yeah, she was a really successful business person? Do you want to say she really touched a lot of people's lives? She was someone who made an impact, right? She was someone who cared for others above herself. So what are your deepest held values? What are things, the other way you can think about this is, what are things that you would never do? So you say, oh, I'd never lie, I'd never cheat, I'd never shortchange someone. And by the way, you might think, well, everyone would have that. No, there are people when it comes time to, when they have a chance to get ahead by cheating or, let's say, backstabbing someone or bad-mouthing someone, they'll do it. I can tell you, because it's been done to me. And I know. So that's the third intersection. So just to summarize, number 1, beliefs. Number 2, gifts or talents. Number 3, your values. Now, I believe that if you take the intersection of all of those 3 things, you will have what truly makes you unique. Not just the story, because again, remember, everyone's story is unique. But that's not the point. The point is your unique story, your unique experiences, your unique lived experience. What have you pulled from that? What have you learned from that? What have you learned to prioritize from that? And I believe the most important things are going to come into those three categories. Either you learned a belief about yourself, you learned that you had a gift, or you learned to value something. You learned to value one thing over another. Maybe you learned to value growth over security. And I think if you take the intersection of those three things, shaped and combined with your unique life experience, then you have the genesis of something that's truly unique, that when a judge asks you, why should we pick you, you will know you have a much stronger starting point. And by the way, even if they don't ask you that question, inherently you want to know, I believe, when you go into an interview or job interview, not just a pageant interview, you want to know what really makes you unique, what makes you tick. I mean, self-awareness is a great thing. And this is very related to that. So if, for example, you have a belief that you're the hardest worker in the room, you have a gift, maybe similar to myself, that you learn things really quickly, or that you're adaptable, or that you handle stress really, really well. Just, maybe you perform better under stress than without the stress. And then maybe your values are honesty, integrity, things like that. And it was shaped by your experience, I don't know, working overseas or doing missionary work in some country. Then I think you really have the beginnings of something that truly makes you unique. Not just saying, hey, I traveled all 50 states, or hey, I did missionary work here, or hey, I love sushi. But the genesis of something that really is unique, that is a genuine reason why someone should pick you over someone else. Because I have to say, when it comes time to pageant interview and you get asked that question, why should we pick you? 99% of the answers that I hear really fall flat. They don't have any impact. So we might trot out the cliches of, I've been preparing like the title holder for the last 12 months. So I've been working for this ever since I walked off the stage last year. Or I'll work harder than anyone else in the room, etc., etc., etc. The thing is, you got to realize everyone else is saying the same thing, directly or indirectly. I mean, no one's going to that interview room saying, you should pick me because I'm the laziest person in the room, right? No one's saying, I've only been preparing for the past 2 days and then I just cheated by having liposuction, and I don't know, maybe they will say that, who knows? But if you have a bit more self-awareness and you've identified in these three areas, what are the beliefs, again, that make you unique? Again, for me, it's like, if where there's a will, there's a way. If someone else can do it, then I can find a way. And also that I really have that unshakable belief that I am the best coach for you. Otherwise, I will refer you on to someone else. And whatever it takes, you sit down for a session with me, I will find a way to deliver. And I'm proud to say I've never had someone turn to me at the end of a session and say, well, I didn't really learn anything from that. I know you could argue they might not say that to my face. I get that. But no matter how long the session has gone, I have found a way to not only solve the problem, but to solve the problem, you need to actually find out what the problem is in the first place. That's another skill. So to actually identify the real problem, then solve it. And that's just an unshakable belief about me. If there's a will, there's a way. So if I'm positioning myself as a pageant title holder, I would identify the areas where I think they are looking to grow or expand, or areas of concern. And then I would say, wherever there's a will, there's a way. I will find a way to get that result. And then your gift as a title holder could be content creation. It could be communication. It could be rapport building. You might be one of those people who walks in a room and just lights it up and everyone falls in love with you. Who knows? But some people, you will have unique gifts or unique talents. And again, you may have worked on them, you may not, but that doesn't really matter. What are your unique gifts? And then that intersection, that final intersection, which is really important, what is most important to you? And really think about that, because some people value being famous more than being honest. Some people value being rich more than making an impact. And I'm not saying these are mutually exclusive, But when it comes time to make important decisions, the main thing that will guide you is your hierarchy of values. Like, which one do you prioritize the most? And we kind of know then which way you're going to make that decision. So have some thoughts as to the intersection of these three for you. What are your most deeply held beliefs about yourself? And you don't have to, again, the way that you know these is you don't even question them. It's not something that can be sort of shaken unless it's a really horrific moment or life-changing moment. These are sorts of things that you probably never question about yourself because you just hold them so dear to yourself. What are your unique talents? And really think about that. Don't just go surface level. Like, are you really good, for example, with myself, at sort of reading people or reading the room? Are you someone who just learns exceedingly quickly? Are you multilingual? Are you a polyglot, if that's the right word? Someone who just knows a lot about a lot of things. Do you have a photographic memory? I wish I did at times. But then also, on top of all that, values are super important. So you could be super gifted, super intelligent, super humorous, light up a room, but if your values are fame and fortune over everything else, then I'm still not, and that would make you unique, by the way, but that's not the kind of unique that I'm going for. So have a think about that. I know it's going to take some brain work, and if you're on the treadmill, if you're on a drive, you have some time to think about it, but I really don't think that it's a story alone that's truly going to make you unique. Because again, yes, you're unique, like everyone else. And so we inherently know that just having your lived experience is not necessarily unique. And I can also tell you that from having interviewed hundreds of pageant girls at this stage, even when I hear a story that I don't think I've heard before, that doesn't really make the person unique. The thing that really makes a person unique is what they did with that story, or what they did with that life experience. What did they learn from it? What did they fail to learn from it? What decisions did they make after that experience? That's what makes you unique. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As I said, this is a framework I've only just I'm thinking out loud with you. This is not a finalized framework, but I wanted to put it to you guys who are listening or watching, and thank you for that, because I think it's going to be super useful for us heading into pageant season. When that question comes up of why should we pick you, or what are your greatest strengths, you will have more of an understanding of yourself. And the deeper your self-awareness, the better the answers you're going to be able to deliver in that interview, whether it's a pageant interview or job interview. So let me know your thoughts on this. As I said, it's a new framework, so it's far from finalized in my head, and it's a bit all over the place, but I'd love to know your thoughts on this one.